Let's go to your calls. I think several people want to weigh in on this Pac-12 issue and ask some questions about the potential player boycott that got a lot of attention starting Sunday and has begun to fizzle as many of their demands have sort of continued to come out, and many people have recognized, wait a minute, there's not a lot of logic to this. Who's up first, Up?
We got Tommy in Florida.
Tommy, what you got for me?
Hey man, first of all, congratulations are in order. I don't think you realize this, but I was listening to the Rush Limbaugh show yesterday, and he talked about your website. He quoted one of your articles. I can't remember the article, but it was about the statistics of the coronavirus. So he was talking about OutKick.com on his show, so I guess congratulations are in order there.
Yeah, thanks for that. We did in July. This is a lot of thanks to you guys out there. We did just shy of 7 million people who read the site in July. And I feel pretty good about our chances to get to 10 million in August as sports are coming back, which is pretty wild. I mean, that makes us one of the 10 or so biggest sports websites in the country already, not to mention, obviously, what we're doing with this radio show. Jason Whitlock's about to debut his new podcast. Our podcast tripled since March in terms of size. You guys are downloading us like crazy. I appreciate all that. And obviously a lot of other media people with substantial audiences are taking note of us. So I appreciate you guys letting me know about stuff like that.
My point is, and I think the erroneously these athletes in the media have this situation wrong about the college football players being paid. They are being exploited, but they're not being exploited by the group that they think. They think they're being exploited by the NCAA, which is an amateur organization. They're actually being exploited by the NFL. The NFL has created in economics what is known as a barrier of entry by not allowing them to play at 18. College football is essentially an amateur league that acts as an internship. I mean, the players should be suing the NFL. Imagine you had an intern working at OutKick, and they're like, well, you ought to be paying me. And you're like, well, hey, you signed up for this. If you want to go get paid, go work for a job that's going to pay you. And they turn around and say, yeah, but there's no one that will allow me to work. So the players are suing the NFL, right? What do you think about that?
I think it's a smart point. And I've been arguing that for years. It's not the NCAA's fault that neither college football nor college basketball will allow people to go pro at 18 years old in their sports. So the barrier to entry, the restraint of trade, is a clear antitrust violation. This is me putting my lawyer hat on. But the reason why they can restrain you from being able to do those jobs at 18 years old is because of a collective bargaining agreement. And in the NBA, you have to be at least 1 year removed from high school in order to go pro, which creates the so-called one-and-done rule. The one-and-done rule is not an NCAA guideline. The NCAA can't restrict you from going into the NBA. The NBA does it. And the fact that you have to wait 3 years to go pro and go play in the NFL is an NFL rule, not an NCAA rule. So you are well within your rights to decide, hey, I'm not going to go to college at all. I'm going to stay out. I'm going to train. I'm going to go the G League, as has now maybe started to be a pathway. I'm going to go overseas and play in basketball, either to Australia or Europe or wherever you may want to go. Those are certainly viable paths that would allow you to wait an additional year until you can actually go pro. But the NCAA is not to blame there. And I think there's an argument to be made that the NCAA should just say, hey, we're done negotiating with players. This is our offer. We think giving you a scholarship and giving you the ability to come get a free education while you pursue sports is a really good offer that we're making. If you want to be a professional, you have to go somewhere else to be a professional. That's not us. We will provide, like we are providing to many other kids out there, an opportunity, a bridge through education to allow you to go pro in something when you graduate or when you decide to leave this university. But we are not in the business, we shouldn't be and we aren't, of effectively being a minor leagues and paying a ton of money on top of the scholarships. Look, there are a ton of people who would give everything they can to be able to play college athletics. There's a huge demand for people who want to accept the offer that the NCAA is making. And so these players in the Pac-12 who are trying to say, hey, give us 50% of your revenue, I don't know who's advising them, but they literally requested something that is impossible for the colleges and universities to give because it would bankrupt the athletic departments and it would simultaneously violate federal and state law, in particular surrounding Title IX, if male athletes were treated completely differently than female athletes. So it's a dead-on-arrival proposal. Who's up next?
We got Greg in Florida.
Greg, what you got for me?
Man, that was outstanding. I've got a little comment about that and a comment overall. First, overall, I think that all sports better be careful because this Black Lives Matter is going deeper than they think. They're losing and will lose a lot of people because spectators. Because look, let's be honest. If you look into Black Lives Matter, not to get into too deeply, but it's a platform for the Democratic Party. Cut clean. I don't care what you say. You want to donate to them? Boom, shoot you right to the Democratic Party. Therefore, that whole thing is a complete political deal. And if we're going to bring it into sports are going to be in trouble. Trust me on that. I think the gamblers will keep it going for a while, but the character and the morals and ethics of our country is really coming up to a huge test right now. And I think that's something that's going to make or break sports, to be honest with you, because people are realizing they can live without sports. It stinks, but you know what? We can. The other point I have is about the college students getting paid. Every time I hear that, a big thing in my stomach gets really turned and sickened because this is not a job. This is going to get a free education worth hundreds and thousands of dollars. We all know that cut and dry, but they're owed nothing more than that. I'd say don't use their likeness if they don't want to, but then again, they're trying to promote you for the Heisman Trophy, for the Outland Trophy, to get all these great awards. And at the end of the day, they want their cake, they want to eat it too. And I think, in my personal opinion, it goes back to the parents, for crying out loud, because they're going, you know what? Yeah, go. Instead of, hey, be grateful for what you have. You've got a talent. You can nurture it. Maybe you can get to the pros, maybe not. There's no givens in that. And also, here's another point. Let's let these 18-year-olds go ahead and go in the NFL. You know what's going to happen? They're going to get beat to heck. They're going to get so beat up. They're going to get hurt. They need to grow it. This isn't even a conversation that has any common sense whatsoever. Because if you want to do that, you got it.
So I don't have any problem with college kids wanting to make more money. That's what capitalism is. The issue is they are not in a for-profit business, and they don't seem to understand that. By which I mean the colleges are effectively socialist systems in the athletic departments. The money that is made from football or men's basketball is rolled into other scholarships for other kids. So the athletic department is not run to make money. The problem that they have that they don't really understand is the NFL is a for-profit business. The NBA is a for-profit business. Every pro sports league is a for-profit business. That's not the case in college athletics. So the money is not going into the university where they're just sitting on a huge pile of cash like would exist when an owner owns a franchise and it is very profitable. They aren't employees in the same context at all. Their profits, to the extent that they exist, are going back in to fund all the other scholarships for the other kids. And so the challenge here is football and men's basketball are the only two sports that can make money most of the places in college athletics. And so as a result, that money is not left alone. If you were running entirely a business of college athletics, you would only play men's basketball and football because those are the only ones that produce a profit. But that's not the goal of college athletic departments. It's to have a well-rounded collegiate athletic experience. So, for instance, No woman would get a scholarship if college athletics were being run as a business. That's not to try to take shot at women's athletics. It's just to point out that the business doesn't make sense. They all lose money. And most men's athletes outside of football and men's basketball wouldn't get scholarships either, because whether you run track or you swim or you play soccer or whatever it is, all of those sports lose money. And there's no way to justify them existing but for it being part of the overall collegiate experience to be playing all these different sports. If what the Pac-12 players wanted was true, 50% of revenue, then they would bankrupt every athletic department and also violate federal law and state law as it pertains to Title IX. Who's up next?
All right, last one here. We got Dan in Green Bay.
Dan, what you got for me?
Not much. A few months back when the XFL was going strong, there was a lot of conversations about players leaving early and things like that. And now with the Rock buying the XFL, you think those same conversations are going to start back up all over again?
Yeah, it's a good question. Thanks for the call. The Rock, for those of you who don't know, bought, as part of a group, the XFL out of bankruptcy. And one of the most interesting moves that the XFL was making was they were going to allow people to go straight from high school into their league, and they weren't going to have age restrictions. So, for instance, if you were Trevor Lawrence after a spectacular freshman year, you could have gone pro and gone to play football in the XFL instead of going back to Clemson to play for another couple of years before you were eligible to be drafted. And in theory, there would have been a lot of kids who may not like the college experience or think it's for them that would have had an opportunity to go straight into playing pro sports. Now, at 18 years old, are their bodies ready? At 19 years old, that's a question they can ask. I don't particularly get worked up about this because I think that's a choice that every adult gets to make. I don't hear a lot of people out there saying, hey, wait a minute, are these 18-year-olds who are signing up to be in the military and are walking around getting shot at, are they ready for that? Probably not. Who's ready for that? But if we're allowing 18-year-olds to go straight into fighting for our country, I'm fine with letting an 18 or 19-year-old go and try to make a living as a professional athlete. Will some of them fail? Yes, certainly. Will some of them end up succeeding? Probably a small percentage of them, certainly in football, for sure. But look at the NBA. In the NBA, 18-year-olds have been more reliable draft picks than 22-year-olds. Straight out of high school kids have done better than kids who stayed for 4 years in college. Do you know why? Because the straight out of high school kids are more talented, whether it's LeBron, Kobe, Kevin Garnett, whatever those scenarios are. That's we're talking about the most talented of the most talented. Some of them end up being unsuccessful, but that happens every year in the draft, regardless of what age you're drafting.